So yes, it's the question a lot of you have been asking me, and understandably recently with what's going in the world. So, am I still planning to fly around the world in 2020? Well, the short answer is... So you may remember at the beginning of this year, I put this video out where I was announcing a project that I've been working on for the better part of 2 years now. My plan to fly solo around the world with a date of departure of June the 29th, 2020. But then the virus whose name shall not be spoken happened, and everything changed. Even a couple of weeks ago on the weekend of what was supposed to be the Australian Grand Prix, I still thought there was a chance I might be able to go. I'm proceeding as if I'm going ahead and departing on June the 29th as per the original plan. That's my plan A. But of course I'm keeping an eye on the situation, so I have a backup plan. But it wasn't long after that all the lockdowns started, airspace was closing down, travel restrictions came into play, and so it became pretty obvious to me I wouldn't be able to do my trip as originally planned. So I had to make the difficult decision to postpone it. Yes, to postpone it, not to cancel it, to postpone it. And I want to make this video to very quickly answer some of the questions that you've been asking me about the trip. So why am I postponing my trip then? First of all, that's getting in the way, so I'm going to put it on the floor. I don't want to set off on and absolutely what is the biggest aviation project of my life without feeling fully prepared and ready for it. Even if all of the airspace opens up tomorrow, travel restrictions are lifted, and we can all go about our normal lives this time tomorrow morning. Wouldn't that be nice? I would still be in a position where myself and the aircraft are not entirely ready for this trip. Let me give you a specific example. Auxiliary fuel tank. We don't have a working fuel tank in the aircraft at the moment. And even if we could get started on that tank installation tomorrow, it's still going to be a few weeks before it's in. Then I'm going to need to test it. And I don't want to be in the situation where I'm testing a huge and critical piece of equipment in the aircraft just weeks before I was planning to set off. Then there's me personally. There are a whole load of training flights that I've been planning to do over the last couple of weeks with the guys from Air RTP. I wanted to do some really in-depth IFR training. I wanted to get the aircraft out at night time and do some more night flying practice. I wanted to get into some sort of marginal weather, which I probably wouldn't fly in without an instructor next to me, just so I can properly test myself before this trip. But of course, none of that has happened. I haven't flown for 4 weeks. And then say the aircraft and myself were ready and the airspace opens up again and I set off in a couple of months' time. Well, who's to say that this thing is done and dusted? I mean, we don't know if areas of new infections are going to pop up and airspace will close down again. And I don't want to be on this trip and halfway round and get stuck somewhere. And finally, if I did set off in a few weeks' time and everything still went okay, you know, there's nothing to say that I might not be contributing to still passing this disease around to other people. There's 54 flights I think I was doing, so that's at least 54 airports that I'm going to be passing through. What happens if I am carrying something that I'm therefore passing on to someone else? Do I want to jeopardize other people's health and well-being as a result of that? I can't justify that. I picked a weather window of roughly between June and October, so setting off from here in Australia when it's basically the middle of winter, but then flying north, which means I get the summer, which is really important across the North Atlantic. It means that I've got the best possible chances for flying through those conditions without things like icing and the poor weather associated with the winter time. But then equally not coming through the Middle East and Asia too early because I don't want to hit that monsoon season. So leaving it until later kind of September means that I've got more likelihood of the monsoon being behind me. So say we're all up and flying by September, October this year, yes, I suppose theoretically I could set off then and do the trip then, but that'll mean then that I'm flying through the Northern Hemisphere and the North Atlantic in wintertime. So the only option I really have, and the one that I've decided to make, is that I'm going to postpone the trip from June a year. I'm going to postpone it a year to June 2021. I know it seems like a long time away. It's literally another year away. So I'm treating this like a pilot would treat any part of their flying, or should do anyway, which is I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to stick to it. And I'm not going to spend the next year thinking, oh, maybe I could have gone in September. Maybe if I only pushed it back 2 weeks, I would have been okay. That's no way to live your life. That's no way to operate as a pilot in an airplane either. And so I'm pushing it back a year. The financial implication of postponing the trip through to next year isn't actually as bad as you may think. A lot of the things that I bought for the aircraft and myself, the fixed assets like the fuel tank, for example, my survival suit that I'll need in the cold waters, things that I might need as I'm on long flights, traveling around the world, all those fixed assets, they're not going anywhere. But then there are some things like visas that I've already got. I do have an actual Russian visa in my passport, which I went to Sydney for about a month and a half ago. So that will expire and I'll lose that. I'll have to reapply for that again. Insurance premiums on the aircraft. I took out a special policy to allow me to fly the aircraft around the world. Now, I'm not going to lose that money. I will say my insurance company are fantastic and they're really helping me with how we can deploy those funds elsewhere. And so yes, there will be some costs that I'll either have to put elsewhere or that I've lost out on entirely, like my Russian visa. There's not a lot. I haven't actually outlaid a lot of costs which I can't push forward a whole year. To be honest, to answer that question as honestly as I can, no. I reckon there was a short amount of disappointment when I realised that I had to actually pull the plug on flying around the world this year and moving it to next year, but no word of a lie, I reckon that lasted minutes. Just minutes, because all of a sudden I've got this opportunity now to spend another year getting even more prepared. The other thing you may be wondering, hang on, let's do a Casey zoom in for this. The other thing you may be wondering is, do I feel stupid about the fact that I made a video a couple of months ago saying I'm flying around the world, and now I'm making a video saying I'm still flying around the world but not for a year's time? Do I feel embarrassed? Do I feel stupid about that? No, not at all. Look, I've been around the business world for long enough to know that you don't get triumphs in life without failures along the way. This is a hurdle. This is not something I'm embarrassed about. This to me, I honestly, and I'm not just saying this, but I see this as a huge positive now, because now what I have is I have a whole year where I can bring you along and make a whole load more content to share with you about this whole project, to hopefully help you if you're ever thinking of doing something along similar lines, to help you if you're interested in the world of aviation and how someone pulls a project like this off in way more detail than I could have expected to had I been setting off as planned later on this year. Overwater flying, international flying, and flying with other YouTubers are going to be the three big things on my to-do list. Practice, practice, practice. I'm going to be doing as much flying in that aircraft as I can with the new equipment. Overseas, there are some countries that I want to take this aircraft to before I go and fly it around the world. Unfortunately, in Australia, you have to go a long way to get to another country, but New Zealand is somewhere that I've been talking about going to for a long time. Southeast Asia is another place that I can get to via Darwin, and I reckon that would be a really interesting mini-series showing how I get my aircraft out of my home country and into another for the first time. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any other questions about this trip, things that I've talked about here that you might want a bit more information on. I'll try and answer as many of them as I can when this video is released. Otherwise, thank you as always for watching. Thank you for your patience with this, and thanks for coming on this slightly extended, but it is going to happen, journey as we plan to fly around the world in 2021. Okay, bye.